We are looking at the another part here, chapter 2 of Esther, verse 19, after the queen has been selected. Now we're going, and there was a big banquet for her. Now in verse 19, chapter 2, verse 19, when the virgins were assembled a second time, Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, but Esther had kept secret her family background and nationality, just as Mordecai had told her to do so, for she continued to follow Mordecai's instructions as she had done when he was bringing her up. During the time Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway, became angry and conspired to assassinate King Ahasuerus. But Mordecai found out about the plot, and he told Queen Esther. When he told, who in turn reported it to the king, giving credit to Mordecai. And when the report was investigated and found to be true, the two officials were hanged on gallows. All this was recorded in the book of the annals of the presence, in the presence of the king. In those days, there were no such things as pictures, videotapes, audio tapes, things like this, of course. And everything that happened in the kingdom was written down by scribes. And they would make these tablets, or they would make these scrolls. And many times in the Bible we find out that King such and such, or this guy or that guy, was reading in the scrolls of his kingship or something. This is going to happen in the next few chapters here. The king can't sleep at night, and so he calls for his scrolls to be read. What happened on this certain day 5 years ago? Well, we can go back and we can say, well, 5 years ago I went fishing and I caught this fish that was so big, or we can go back and we can read where a certain law was passed at the Oklahoma legislature, or we can go back and read this or that. Okay, now we're in verse 1, chapter 3. After these events, King Xerxes honored Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agite. So if Hammedatha is an Agite, so is Haman. Elevating him and giving him a seat of honor higher than all of the other nobles. All the royal officials at the king's gate knelt down and paid honor to Haman, for the king had commanded this concerning him, but Mordecai would not kneel down and pay him honor. Now we're into this thing. It's going to get silly here in just a few minutes, because Mordecai will not bow down. He will to the king, but he will not to Haman. That's part of what gets funny. When the royal officials at the king's gate asked Mordecai, "Why do you disobey the king's command?" Day after day they spoke to him, but he refused to comply. Therefore they told Haman about it to see whether Mordecai's behavior would be tolerated, for he had told them that he was a Jew. So now it's out in the open. Mordecai is a Jew. The Jews don't bow down to anybody except God Almighty. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not kneel down or pray or pay him honor, he was enraged. Yet having learned who Mordecai's people were, he scorned the idea of killing only Mordecai. He said, I won't just kill the one man, I'll kill them all. Instead, Haman looked for a way to destroy all of Mordecai's people, the Jews throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus. So here we have one person, Mordecai, putting the entire nation at risk. And we have one man, Haman, wanting to destroy an entire nation. And so what's going on? And so, you say, well, come on, Mordecai, you can just bow down to him and appease him just once. Well, how many times does it take committing a sin? He thought it was a sin, and it doesn't count. Now just think about that for a moment. How many times does it take to bow down to a god, a man-made god, a piece of wood? And it reminds me of writings back in some previous chapters there about, I think it's in the 44th chapter of Isaiah. He says, why would you bow down to a man-made God? A man goes out into the woods and he cuts down a tree. And let's just say that he cuts down this great big huge oak tree. Okay, and he cuts a chunk out of it. Let's just say a 10-foot tall trunk of a tree from the ground up to the first branches. That's the trunk, and let's just say it's 10 feet. And it's how big as a wash tub. And you cut that out. You got good wood in there, straight grain, all of this. It will carve good. Then you cut this down to, let's just say, something this tall. And you chop it apart till you've just got a piece of wood, maybe 4 inches around and 12 inches tall. And then you start carving on it and you make this little idol out of it. And you put it up on the shelf and you pray to it and you say, oh, idol, 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 let my crops grow good. Bring rain to the land. Let the seed that I planted all germinate. Let me and my wife have abundance of children. Let me be prosperous. All of this. You made this thing. Well, if you didn't, maybe the neighbor guy did. Well, what are you going to do with all the rest of that wood that's cut up out of that tree? Now, this is in Isaiah chapter 44, I believe. He said, you take the rest of that wood that's not holy, and you warm your house with it, you cook your food with it, you warm the water to take a bath with it, you use it, you might want to cut it up into boards to build a chicken house. Who knows? So why is only just this one little old bitty chunk any holier than the whole 10-foot piece? God kind of brings you down to your senses at times, doesn't he? And so we Mordecai, why don't you just bow down one time? He said, I can't do that. I can't do that. I do not want to offend my God. And so he would not bow down for nothing. When Mordecai wouldn't bow down to him, Haman got madder and madder and madder. So we'll look at that next time.